I don't need my glasses, great. Hello, good morning. I'm Caroline from Halle Zoo in Germany, central Germany, close to Leipzig. For those who do not know, we're just 40 kilometers away, so the big sister is always there. So I need the I have a little picture. You see, we are quite on a rock within the city. That's also quite good to know that we are completely surrounded by the city, so no chance to grow. So we are quite small, surrounded, and we have 9 hectares. Of course, we have our director. We have about 80 staff members. 36 of them are keepers, and just 1 full-time curator for mammals. That's me. And we have 2 veterinarians. One of them has the reptiles and amphibia, and we have a head keeper who's also the curator for birds. So we're quite small in terms of leading staff, and we have 100 species around. Almost 40 of them are managed in stud books. We have 1,000 animals, but that's already including the fish and the insects. So it's not that much, but still quite a lot of work always. And we run 4 breeding programs, and we have 1 tech chair, so we try to be involved with YASA as much as we can. We really enjoy that a lot. And now we also have to work on conservation. So I think to understand a bit how we work, I would like to talk a little bit about our master plan that was developed by our director 9 years ago. We do not focus so much on geographic regions, but more on habitat. And because we're so steepy enclosures, we have a lot of mountain species. So the big purple area is the mountain regions, where we have golden taki, red panda, mountain zebra. Then the orange part is a bit of the grasslands around the world with African elephants, giant anteater, vicuña, and most diverse is probably the rainforest area, because we have primates like gibbons and chimpanzees, but also songbirds, blue crown laughing thrush, Sumatran tigers, and the smallest part is the blue one, which is Patagonia or Humboldt's coast, with Humboldt penguin, of course, Geoffroy's cat, and southern poodle. So from our team who's working on conservation, but mostly it's my director. He's a CEO and director, he's a veterinarian. Then it's me. I'm the curator for mammals and head of zoology, and I'm a biologist, but not with a background on conservation. I focus more on other things during my studies. And then there's Anke. Anke is of our educator team, and she has a diploma in environmental science. So in the past, also with the previous director, conservation work in Zoo Halle was very low scale. I think our budget was mainly coming from donation boxes. We had a few, which was probably between 3,000 and 5,000 euro per year, so quite not so much. But very passionate about education and spreading the message of conservation to the visitors with the Penguin Day and other action days and tours. But that has all changed because we had the chance to implement the Conservation Euro. Before it was not possible due to political reasons, but with the beginning of 2022, we were able to go for it. It came a bit out of the sudden. That's also why we are now having 2 years later the strategy. But so if visitors come to the main entrance, they have a very high acceptance. We use the system of they have to actively decline if they don't want to pay it, and basically nobody does that. 94% is acceptance. Online, the law says you have to tick on purpose the little box, so it's a bit less, or quite less actually, but and also in the zoo, conservation looks a bit different. So when we have projects assigned to a species, then we have a panel, we have right at the main entrance the information cube, so we want our visitors to enter the zoo and then really directly see where does this Conservation Euro go. And also we have more pavilions and signs. Some of them are still in work right now. So what changed? Well, quite a bit. In green you can see all that came in terms of budget for conservation, which was mainly the donation boxes, and we tried to take a little bit away also from the internal budget. especially in the years before the Conservation Euro. And then you see in red the expenses, so we always also tried to give that money to projects that helped to preserve species. And in 2022, it made such a huge jump that it came quite upon us. You can see in red that we're still finding our way where that should go. Yes, Tatjana, I know we need to speak. And what you see here is actually just the in situ half of the Conservation Euro. Because in Halle we split the euro, 50% of it go to what you see right here, into in situ conservation, but the other half of it, which you do not see here, goes into ex situ conservation. Which mainly focus on the EEP species that we have, and could be something like, for example, this year we funded a study on vaccination against herpes in African elephants. So this is just half of it, and you can kind of see that we needed some kind of more sophisticated structure behind this, and this is why we also needed to write the conservation strategy. But it was quite a challenge for us because we're no conservationists, and we kind of didn't know where do we start. So a good start is come to the forum. I did that 2 years ago. That was really very inspiring and quite humbling at the same time. Like Jeroen's talk just was. But it was also helpful to join the 2 workshops. One put me in the shoes of creating own projects, also quite a different perspective, and then there was a lot of brainstorming during the EASA workshop, and actually all those key points I tried to get into the strategy. So this can help, but of course examples of other members. Simon, I recorded your presentation and I showed it to everybody in the Zoom. Of course that helps a lot, and also big scale theft from other zoos. Some strategies are uploaded already. And of course the guidelines of EASA and IUCN. So you see, I'm trying to inspire zoos that have the same bit limited resources like we have to find the way into how to get the strategy. So for us, most important was understand conservation work. We had not so much experience, and so how does this whole system work? How does conservation work on a global scale, and where do we stand on this in this world? What is our place in it, and what are we able to do and what not? What is beyond the capabilities, and how do we ensure that this quite a lot of money for us that we get finds the right place and can be used most effectively? So we looked for help. Thank you to the 3 people that I'm going to mention on the slide. Actually, for us, this was the most important work. The talks to these people was what helped us understand who we are, what we can do, and how to write the strategy in the end. So thank you to Tobias Kohl from Stiftung Artenschutz, Arne Schulze from ZGRP. We invited Tobias to Halle. We talked about conservation for 3 hours. I learned in these 3 hours more than ever about that topic in my whole life. It was very humbling as well, and my director also told me that he had a lot of talks to Arne from time to time here and there when they met. And what we mainly ask is, how does your foundation work? How do you screen the projects? How do you evaluate their credibility? And who's actually coming to you asking for support? How do these projects work, and what do they need the most? What do they exactly ask for? And what is the impact of your institution? How do you measure that? And on the other hand, we also have quite close by a nice zoo, one of the leading institutions of conservation. So thank you, Michael, for taking so much time of walking us through the zoo, and we kind of stepped on his toes and said, tell us details on how do you work in terms of conservation, how does the work in the zoo look like? How do you ensure the success of your projects? Big question for us, what does it take to run your own conservation project, and how do you communicate your conservation efforts? So thanks to those 3, we got a bit of clarity and felt ready to go a bit more into detail and we found, I think, a bit our place, what we can do now with the resources that we have right now, which is not acquire our own projects, communicate, go out, travel to the countries and communicate with local authorities. How do we ensure our support meets the needs that is still difficult to do on our own? We can't go out and do field science there, and we will not have in the short term a full position for a conservation manager at Halle. But what we can do is we can support the organizations that can do all these things. We can establish personal contact with projects, we can ask for annual reports, of course, ourselves, we can clear the criteria for the selection of the species and the projects. That's what we have in the strategy, and then we can write the strategy and implement the strategy, and we can communicate it internally and externally, and we can also improve our work on fundraising. So now, we were about ready to go and write the document, and then I said, oh, I need to speak to my director because we need to find out who's going to read the strategy, so what is the target group. For us it was quite quickly clear that it was not something, maybe it's a German way of thinking, we wanted to have a very strategic, structured document, not so fancy looking with a lot of numbers and success stories yet, that will come later. So we decided this is a document for staff and colleagues, for you guys, if you want to see it, for our stakeholders, for members of our corporate board. They have seen it yesterday. My director told me this morning they have agreed. Okay, let's see what I mean in detail. The visitors, we will not communicate that in the zoo, but we want to publish it on our website. So. We need to know also what is the purpose of the document, and like I said, for us it is more a strategic in-house working document about just our in-situ conservation work. So the information you need about how do we use our funds in a maximum sustainable way. So the first step is now the strategy is the working document, but there will also be a conservation report, probably every year if it makes sense. So where we all have the nice numbers on how many species do we support, how many projects do we have. And I saw a lot of examples of strategies which were more like master plans, so that is also what we decided to do in the future. We will have a conservation master plan, and then we will have also things like a document about our ex-situ conservation work, the conservation education strategy, and research and sustainable policy. So that is something that does not go in the strategy right now from our point of view. So this is the structure of our document. We have 7 pages and 12 chapters. It's a bit dry looking now because for us it's just a strategic document. I'm not going to go through all the different chapters, but maybe the most important ones that cost us also the most way of thinking, maybe most effort. First, it's our mission. Of course, after a little introduction, it is create empathy for the animals and their needs, encourage our visitors for more sustainable lifestyle, rethink your environmental footprint, and of course engage in nature conservation. And we stated goals, but the goals not of our conservation work, but in terms of the document. So this document serves to identify the species and the projects we want to work with, making sure that the financial support is used most effectively, and develop meaningful collaborations with some are here, with the partners in conservation. So for us the most important chapter is criteria. How do we select the species that we want to support? We decided to take into consideration the master plan and educational concept that we have. It's also the IUCN Red List status of the species. It has to be somehow important for the ecosystem. It's looking what are the most dominant threats on the moment, and do the protective measures of the project have positive influence on the population. Ideally, we have the species in the zoo. With some it works, but not with all. Sometimes they are just very closely related, and they can still serve as an ambassador species. Each of the 4 habitat areas that I described should have one long-term project assigned. But also we want to be a little bit flexible, because sometimes we call that emergency calls. I don't know if that's the correct translation. You know, somebody calls, it could be from IUCN specialist group, or the taxonomic advisory groups, or Stiftung Artenschutz or ZGAB. They send an email and they say, can somebody help here? We have a project that needs a bit of money right now to survive or to get something done. So that is also something we would like to include and be a little bit flexible. And the criteria of how we select the project is also something that my director talked a lot about. They must contribute directly to the protection, preservation of the target animal species, and the habitat should be feasible. Of course, we like to work with partners that we trust, mostly reliable and long-going personal relationship, if possible. Costs must be in proportion to the expected benefits, and for monitoring and evaluation, we ask for a report on progress and results. But also a bit more explained, and that was also the outcome of our talks to the experts. We want to prioritize long-term projects. We think that is more sustainable and better impact. We want to focus on strengthening local communities and protecting and preserving habitats. We like projects that aim to reintroduce and support the population of endangered species, but we do not support only projects, but also the structures behind, such as IUCN specialist groups or the offices of the foundations in Germany, because they also need to be able to do their work. And we also define other fields that we may support in future projects, which is conservation research, sustainable use of resources, and preventing illegal wildlife trade. Of course, we wanted to, sorry, what did I mean? We wanted to, that is a chapter I kind of stole a bit from other strategies. There is the conservation on our side. Quite a few things we do for the local species that live in Halle. That's quite a bit. Of course, we wanted to name the standards that are important to us. Actually, after writing the strategy, I also cross-checked with the 2 other conservation standards to see if everything is in or not. I used a color system if we checked it, and still a bit to do on impact, I think, like any other strategy. And of course, documentation, we rely on frequent communication, face-to-face visits wherever possible or applicable, and regular reports from the partners, maybe collaboration also with the established organizations such as WWF, Stiftung Artenschutz or ZGAP. And communication, sorry, I was a bit too fast in talking and my finger was not fast enough. So communication, of course we have what you've seen on the pictures, which is the pavilions in the zoo, the signs, but also the media presentation, social media. We have our conservation report going on that needs to be written still for 2023. And this is also what is in the strategy. We have named 3 examples of projects that I'm going to jump here. And almost the last chapter, long-term goals for us. That is something that we wanted to have really realistic and something that we can really work on, which is a long-term positive impact on wild populations of the selected species, strengthening the collaborations that we have, improve on fundraising, and also implement own local conservation projects in the future. And we thought many people read the introduction and they kind of jump and scan through the chapters and then they read the summary. So let's have a good summary. If you didn't get the message we wanted to get across in the last 7 pages, here's just 5 sentences to read it again. So that is something that we like to have in the end, just to give the main message and to end the strategy in this way. So this is our document. The question is now, what's next? It's really fresh. We've just finished the final version of it. Like I said, the corporate board has seen it yesterday. So now we need to communicate it internally, publish it on our website, also write what we've said, the conservation report with all the numbers and figures, and implement the strategy for the future work to make good use of the zoo euro. And also implement the conservation master plan. So I'm asking you, getting back to my question from the beginning to the title, we feel like heroes a little bit. To be honest, I think after the session, or maybe after the end of the forum, I'm probably going to rewrite the bloody document. But now we're really proud that, because it took us 2 years in total to think through the process and to actually write it down. So we're a little bit proud that we're kind of on time with it, and maybe you can tell me later what you think about that. So thank you. And if you want to have a